Thank you. I hope that you found this last session as fascinating and galvanizing as I did. I was really just thrilled by the level of discussion and the points that were raised. We'll close this plenary with 5 commitments that address some of the challenges that we have heard about today. But first, I'd like to take just a few minutes to put this discussion into a broader context. Because whether we are talking about empowering and connecting women in economics or healthcare or education or politics, it all comes back to a question of the full and equal participation of women versus their marginalization. Now, nearly 20 years ago, in 1995, 189 countries, along with civil society, activists, organizations, came together in Beijing for the 4th World Conference on Women, sponsored by the United Nations. I was proud, along with my colleague, former Secretary Madeleine Albright, who's here in the audience, to lead the American delegation to Beijing. While there, we agreed to an ambitious platform for action that called for, and I quote, the full and equal participation of women in political, civil, economic, social, and cultural life. Now, it was a call to action for the global community to work for the laws and reforms and social changes necessary to ensure that women and girls everywhere finally have the opportunities they deserve to live up to their own God-given potentials and contribute fully to the progress and prosperity of their societies. It has served as a roadmap ever since, guiding progress for women and girls. Now, in many countries, laws that once permitted the unequal treatment of women have been replaced by laws that recognize, at least on paper, their equality. The international community has come together to sign conventions and approve resolutions promoting the rights and status of women and girls. Today, as you've heard over the last sessions here at CGI, more girls are in school, more women hold jobs and serve in public office around the world, and as women have been given or gained the chance to work, learn, and participate, their economic, social, and political contributions have multiplied. Yet we know, and we just heard examples, that for all this progress, we're still a long way from the goal of full and equal participation. You saw the stories in that video about young girls forced into early marriages. You know the statistics. Women and girls still comprise the majority of the world's unhealthy, unfed, and unpaid, marginalized in so many ways. So yes, we've built an international architecture of laws and norms to protect women's rights, but in many cases, it remains a bare scaffold without the bricks and mortar needed to make those laws effective in people's lives and turn our rhetoric into reality. 2015 will mark 20 years since that conference in Beijing. So I believe it's time for a full and clear-eyed look at how far we have come, how far we still have to go, and what we plan to do together about the unfinished business of the 21st century, the full and equal participation of women. I will be leading an effort here at the Clinton Foundation, including through CGI, to bring together partner organizations, international institutions, governments, businesses, NGOs, and others to evaluate the progress we've made in time for the 20th anniversary in September 2015, and to work to chart the path forward to achieve that full and equal participation. Starting close at home, at the Clinton Foundation and CGI, we are fully committed to leading this charge. Initiatives and programs across the foundation are already working to empower women and girls, whether it's the Clinton Health Access Initiative focused on preventing mother-to-child transmissions of HIV or expanding access to family planning, or the Clinton Development Initiative, helping thousands of women farmers in Malawi and Rwanda increase their incomes and lift up their families and communities, or here at CGI, where we have seen how commitments concerning women and girls have produced results. The percentage of CGI commitments that focus on girls and women continues to rise. Of the 158 new commitments in 2013, 97 have substantive girls and women's components. And that brings me to our commitments for action today. I will have, of course, more to say about our Beijing Plus 20 work in the weeks ahead. But you will see visualized right here on stage as we announce these commitments, 3 new commitments and 2 terrific progress reports as examples of how we can use new tools and partners to move toward our goal. Now, the first commitment, advancing women-owned businesses in new markets. I'd like to call up Elizabeth Vasquez from We Connect International, who will then introduce her partners. And the partners are a broad cross-section, as you will soon hear. So, Elizabeth, please.
Thank you, Secretary Clinton, and thank you, CGI, for this very important opportunity to feature 9 of our 24 commitment partners, including Elise Nelson with Vital Voices Global Partnership, B. Perez from the Coca-Cola Company, Dina Habib Powell from Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women, Arnie Sorensen from Marriott International, Donna McClarty from McClarty Global Fellows, Andrea Thomas from Walmart, Nikki Major from EY, and Noah Giamelli from ExxonMobil.
That is great. Now, you know, back in Beijing, we recognized the untapped economic potential of women as drivers of growth. And since 1995, study after study has documented that when women have the opportunity to start businesses, own land, we talked about that yesterday morning at the first plenary, getting land title to the women who actually work the land, receive credit, entire economies expand. And what you see before you as representative of this very exciting commitment are companies and NGOs that fully embrace the potential. For example, in Latin America and the Caribbean, we've seen increasing women's participation in the labor market. They now account for more than half of all workers. The World Bank estimates that extreme poverty in Latin America has decreased by 30% as a result. Yet we know that even after 18 years from Beijing, there are still a lot of significant barriers. What this commitment is really aimed at is how we change, break down the barriers, change laws if necessary, regulations if required, but generally getting into the game with more women participating. This commitment is to mobilize at least $1.5 billion over the next 5 years to spend on women-owned businesses based outside the United States to help create a sustainable pipeline of women's suppliers around the world. They will also provide 15,000 women entrepreneurs with supplier readiness initiatives, including training and mentorship opportunities, so they can have the skills and tools and relationships necessary to achieve greater access to markets and capital. Each of the partners, and you heard Elizabeth say there are 24 partners, will focus on a specific area of need and leverage each other's contributions. This is such a perfect example of CGI networking, and I want you to join with me in thanking this group for this very exciting commitment. leveraging social capital and real capital. It's a great combination. Our second commitment is focusing on barriers in access to technology, and I would like to invite to the stage Trish Tierney of the Institute of International Education, Catherine Courage of Citrix, Peggy Johnson of Qualcomm, Jacqueline Fuller of Google, and Lorena Yee of McKinsey. Now, we know that technology is a huge driver of economic change and increase in social capital. And here's a surprising fact. 20 years ago, more than 25% of all computer science degrees earned in the United States went to women. Now, over time, this number has actually gone down, not up. Today, women account for less than 20% of these degrees. That is still far more than many places around the world, but it's not enough. And the trend is going opposite of full and equal participation that was set as a goal in Beijing. So here's what this commitment is all about. These partners will provide a $10 million investment for programs in India, Africa, and the United States to encourage parents and schools to teach technology subjects to girls and to provide mentoring, engineering scholarships, small grants, and professional development opportunities for women, ultimately aimed at creating an employee pipeline of 2,000 girls and women for the technology sector. With plans to extend to other countries over the next 3 years, this commitment aims to create an ongoing cycle of women supporting other women in the tech sector, contributing to economic growth, social advancement, and technological innovation. Another very exciting commitment. Let's please express our appreciation. The third commitment is Intel, connecting women to bridge Africa's gender gap. Please welcome Shelley Eskew of Intel Corporation. Again, I reflect back 20 years. Back in Beijing, we didn't really imagine the mobile technology and the other incredible advances that have transformed our world. But even then, we saw the beginnings of what is called the digital divide, and that has only grown. Today, 200 million fewer women than men are online in the developing world. In sub-Saharan Africa, where just 12% of the population is online, men are nearly twice as likely as women to have access to the internet. Bridging this divide would open up vast new opportunities for economic and political participation. That's why Intel is committing to work with CARE, World Vision, World Plus, Change Corp Inc., and telecenter.org in 6 sub-Saharan African countries to bring 5 million young women online over the next 3 years. They will integrate digital literacy training into existing gender and development programming and create an educational online gaming platform so that this learning can take place anywhere. This initiative will also provide women-tailored content and a peer network that will enable women to seek out the information that is relevant to them, as well as find support and mentorship. So when we think about what the world is going to look like in the coming 20 years, we have to do more to make sure that women as well as men, girls as well as boys, are empowered to use new technology to further their own aspirations. And so, Shelley, thank you, and thanks to Intel. Now, let me give you two updates, progress reports on previous commitments. I mean, one of the things that CGI does between the annual meetings is to take the commitments, work with the commitment givers, try to help solve problems, remove obstacles, find new partners if needed, but also hold ourselves accountable so that it's not just the photo op, but it's the actual outcomes that are hoped for and achieved. And so we have two progress reports. I'd like to invite up on stage Emily Jacobi of Digital Democracy and Aramit Delva of COFAVIV to join me because they represent one of the key provisions of the Beijing Platform call to action, and that was to end violence against women and girls. Now, we have made progress in many places against what are human rights violations, yet nearly 20 years later, gender-based violence remains a reality, and one of the panels yesterday we heard probably 1/3 of all women in the world at some point in their lives experience violence. Haiti's even worse. The World Bank estimates that 70% of Haitian women have been affected by some form of violence, much of it domestic violence. In 2010, Digital Democracy decided to see if they could deploy new technology to help address this very old challenge. They committed to provide partners with tools and training to increase the technical skills of more than 120 low-income Haitian girls and women. We can already see results. During the past 3 years, Digital Democracy has met the goals that it set. It has worked closely with grassroots partners like COFAVIV to design and launch a 24-hour emergency response hotline connecting survivors of gender-based violence to medical, legal, and psychosocial support. This hotline has received more than 8,000 calls since its launch and connected more than 300 survivors to help. They've also created a free, anonymous digital platform for women to tell their stories, as well as a comprehensive system to track, analyze, map, and share gender-based violence-related data with local, national, and international partners. The system currently has more than 1,100 documented incidents of gender-based violence. This is the kind of success story that we love to highlight here at CGI because they said they were going to do something, they got to work, and they're really producing results. So let's give them a round of applause. Finally, we are turning to the issue of land rights for women and girls. This is one of these issues that has been a little below the radar, but again, as we heard from Mo Ibrahim and others, is so important. And I want to welcome to the stage Tim Hanstad of Landesa. Because what he is doing, along with his partners, is really making a difference. Women produce nearly half of the food grown in the developing world, but they rarely own the land they farm, and they're often denied equal rights to access, inherit, or own it, even when laws are changed, because I personally worked on getting some laws changed in sub-Saharan Africa back in the 90s. Laws are changed, but behavior doesn't change. And access to courts doesn't get any easier. So yes, the law's on the books, and people can say with a straight face, oh, we eliminated those problems, but the story on the ground is much different. So in 2010, Landesa and its partners committed to creating opportunities for poor rural girls and women in sub-Saharan Africa and Asia by strengthening their rights to land. In India, over the past 3 years, Landesa's initiative to improve girls' economic and social empowerment has established 299 girl groups with more than 7,000 girls. This year, they will expand to reach 35,000 more. In northern Uganda, they piloted the use of a participatory model in which girls and women determine goals for land rights and then develop their own plan to achieve them. And they're now scaling this approach up in other communities in the region. This is a very key issue as we look toward Beijing plus 20 and then beyond, as to how we truly nail down land rights once and for all. And I look forward to working with you and your partners in raising the visibility of this issue and holding governments to account and making sure that we actually get the results that you're seeking. So please acknowledge the progress that has been made. So that gives you a small taste of what we already are doing and linking it with what we intend to do. Probably the most common concern that CGI has heard over the last several years is, when are you going to do more on girls and women? And the girls and women track has certainly expanded. But given the incredible convening power that CGI represents, given the extraordinary experience and expertise that our partners and our commitment makers have, we really want to use your help in making sure that we do a very thorough analysis of what we've achieved over the last 20 years, as clear-eyed as we possibly can be, and then to help prioritize what the big issues are going forward. And one of the key elements of this will be to hear the voices of people themselves, women and men alike, to hear what is actually happening in their communities, in their families, in their societies and nations, so that we can paint the picture about how far we have come and take credit for the progress that tens of millions of people have made since 1995, but then to work together to solve the remaining problems and obstacles to women's full and equal participation. We really are in what I call the age of participation. Everybody gets to participate. Everybody has, the option, or at some point will achieve having technology, particularly mobile technology, that makes them a participant in all kinds of activities that they are observing or being involved in. So it is an age of participation, and our goal is to make sure that everyone has a full and equal chance to be a participant in all that we can accomplish together in the years to come. So thank you all very much for being part of that.